Shields up, Ironbreakers, and welcome back to Monster Hunter Wilds. In today's video, I want to talk a little bit about mounting mechanics because I understand that there's a lot of new players that are trying out Monster Hunter for the very first time with the Monster Hunter Wilds beta, and they might not entirely understand how mounting actually works. And even for returning players, you might be a little bit confused with all the options that we're given now when we are mounting a monster. So, with that out of the way, let's get started. The way that you engage in a mounting interaction or a mounting attack, whatever you want to call it, is basically any attack that hits the monster while your character is not physically in the ground. So, say for instance, do a jumping attack with a sword and shield, you do a jumping attack with an insect glaive, or if you jump off of a ledge with any other weapon and you hit the monster while you're still in the air, if you jump off of your sacred and you hit the monster while you're still in the air, or even if you're doing a sliding attack and then you jump off of the slope and you hit the monster while in the air, all of that is going to count towards the mounting threshold of that monster. The mounting threshold works almost like a status ailment. Think of like a poison or something like that. You have to hit the monster a bunch of times before the poison actually triggers. It's kind of the same thing. After you hit the monster a couple of times with aerial attacks, you will eventually trigger a mount. And once you trigger a mount, you're going to be given a couple of options for things that you can do. Number one, in terms of moving around, you can move between a couple of preset spots on the top of the monster. In the case of the Chatacabra, there's going to be two positions. You can land on the head or you can move on to his lower back. And in there, you're going to be able to do a bunch of different attacks. When it comes to, say, the Doshiguma, there's actually going to be three positions that you can jump between. You can jump to his head, you can jump to his back, and you can jump also to his lower back. And the idea whenever you are doing a mounting attack is that you are basically fighting with the monster. The monster is going to be trying to shake you off. So what you're going to be doing is you're going to be jumping from spot to spot in order to avoid the counterplay that the monster is doing to you. So say for instance, if you are clutching on to the monster's head and you start seeing the screen like glow red and basically giving you like warning signals that stuff's about to go bad, that's when you want to move to another position. And then you attack that position until the screen goes red and you move back to the previous one whenever the monster's trying to shake you off again. And you're kind of doing this little game of cat and mouse where the monster is trying to shake you off and you're trying to stay on top of him for as long as possible. There's also another mechanic that you can do whenever the monster is trying to shake you off, and depending on the monster actions, that is going to be something that you will want to do in the final version of the game. Even if I feel like the monsters that are in this version of the game, you really don't need to engage in bracing all of that much, which is done by pressing the same button as block, or R2 in this case, or the right trigger, depending on the control that you're going to be using, because it is going to be available on PC pretty soon, or maybe by the time this video goes out, the beta is already available on PC even, who knows. But the idea is if the monster's trying to shake you off, you can brace or you can move to a different position in the monster. Okay, that's all well and good to basically try and maximize your time on top of the monster. But why do you want to be on top of the monster to begin with? Well, in previous games, the way that it used to work is you basically stab at the monster repeatedly, and then eventually the monster gets tired, and you get to do a finishing attack with your weapon, and you get to finish on whatever zone of the monster you happen to be in. So you can kind of like choose. Sometimes people would choose to end on the monster's tail because you might want to be going for a tail chop. Most of the time, people choose to end on the monster's head because it's a good hit zone, and if your weapon happens to deal blunt damage, it also does KO, so the head's a very popular place to finish your mounting attack in, which I understand exactly what that sounds like. But you guys get the idea, right? You'd stab at the monster a bunch of times and then you would end the attack and that's it. Now, after you finish the attack, usually the monster goes down and it gives you a large opening for you to deal damage, and that's kind of like the advantage of doing a mounting attack. You mount the monster, you beat the crap out of it while you're on top of the monster, and then the monster falls over, gives you a massive opening for damage. Now, this time around, things are a little bit different because rather than just being able to stab or move between and then brace, you're actually given three different actions well, four if you count brace. You're given four different actions to do while you're on top of the monster. You can use your circle button or the B button if you're on an Xbox controller. Don't ask me what the keyboard equivalent is. You'll have to check the controls for yourself. But it's going to be displayed on the top right-hand side on screen in case you are curious, right? But you can press circle or B in order to do a quick stab. Quick stab is going to stab very quickly, deal very little damage, but it is effective if you need to move around a lot because there's not a lot of animation commitment. If you press triangle or Y, or the keyboard equivalent, that is going to be a strong stab. And the strong stab deals more damage. It is quicker at opening the wounds, but it has more animation commitment. So what's the downside of doing that? Downside is that you might be caught while stabbing, and the monster might try to shake you off, and you lose a bunch of stamina, and you might end up not being able to finish your mounting attack if you happen to be caught off guard, right? But, you know, deals more damage, opens wounds faster, and all that good stuff. And then you have another one, which is R1, which is your weapon attack, where you actually attack with your weapon on the monster's back. And that is something completely new. We've never seen that before. Then again, never really seen strong stab before either. We just had, like, regular stab. And, you know, in Rise and Sunbreak, we have Wyvern Riding, which is a completely different mechanic, but doesn't matter, right? So you have these three things that you can do. So the advantages of each is, as you go through, quick stab, the fastest one, deals the least amount of damage. Strong stab, it's like medium, deals a decent chunk of damage. And at the same time, it also takes longer. And then your weapon attack is the one that takes the longest. The weapon attack is also the one that you need to do in order to finish the mounting attack. So keep that in mind. But the idea this time around, when it comes to Monster Hunter Wilds, is that whenever you mount a monster, at least from what I can tell from my mounting experience so far, and you guys feel free to disagree with me in the comments and let me know what you think about this, but it seems like the idea is you don't just open up a wound and finish. What you want to do is you want to open up as many wounds as possible. Now, the way that wounds work in Monster Hunter Wilds, normal wounds from just hitting the monster, gets a wound, then you get to pop it up with a focus strike. We all kind of like understand how that works at this point, I hope. But the way that they work is that once you open up a wound, and either that wound scars because you didn't deal enough damage to break it, or you break the wound, that wound does not open again. With a small exception for Doshiguma, because he has an enrage mechanic that when he goes real enrage, like, it opens up all of his wounds again. But most other monsters, whenever you either break a wound or the wound scars, that's it. That wound is closed. It's not going to open up again. On the other hand, wounds from mounting, you can always open up those wounds again. So the idea is, when you get a mounting attack, you'll want to maximize your time on top of the monster and open up as many wounds as possible. So in the case of the Doshiguma, you can open up 3 wounds every time that you mount the monster. Now, naturally, you can only break one of those wounds as you finish your mounting attack, but those wounds stay open once the mounting attack ends. So if you open up 3 wounds on the back of a Doshiguma or 2 wounds on the back of a Chatacabra, at the end of that attack, you're going to be able to basically, you know, the monster's going to be going down. You can break all of those wounds for a decent chunk of bonus damage. So don't just focus on finishing your mount and then, you know, pressing your button attack on top of a wound and wrapping it up. Focus on always making as many wounds as possible, because then you can exploit that after the mount attack is over, because you can do focus strikes all over that monster. But yeah, that's kind of like the way that it goes. Now, usually what I've been doing in the demo most of the time is I just, you know, I get in there and I just start quick stabbing because it's the fastest way. And you just like stab, stab, stab real fast. Some monsters it's faster to get wounds open, other monsters it's slower. And then when the wounds are open all over the monster, you will move to the specific position that you want to finish on, and you press R1, and your weapon attack will take care of the rest. It will automatically bring the monster down, do all of that stuff. But the way that I think that this is going to work in the final version of the game is I think that different weapons are going to be dealing different damage styles. So like, for instance, if you have a sword and shield, that's going to be dealing slashing damage because of how that animation works whenever you are attacking the monster. If you have a hammer, you're going to be doing blunt damage, and I feel like different monsters are actually going to have different, damage calculations for when you are hitting them from a mounting attack. And there's probably going to be monsters that are there's going to be an advantage for, say, a hammer user mounting them. Like, I think that if you're fighting a bear-off, likely the hammer user should take priority with getting the mount, because that's probably going to be the one that opens up wounds the fastest. And I actually think that maybe some monsters, some of the stronger monsters, it's going to be a little bit tougher for you to open up wounds when you get a mounting attack. So choosing the weapons might end up being important. At least I hope so, because I think that would be really, really cool. But I really like the added complexity that they put on mounting attacks, because I've always been a fan of mounting attacks. When they introduced them in Monster Hunter 4, I actually started just playing Insect Glaive because I was like, bro, these mounting attacks are really cool. I just like doing mounting attacks. It's awesome, right? But yeah, that's kind of like how mounting attacks works in Monster Hunter Wilds. So open up those wounds and then finish up on the wound that you feel is going to be the hardest one to reach when the monster goes down. So in the case of Doshiguma, maybe that's his back, because its back is like so high, whereas usually the face is a little bit lower and the lower back is a little bit lower. You might be able to reach that a little bit better. So it doesn't always pay off to finish on the monster's head. Sometimes you might want to finish on the monster's back because that wound's a little bit hard to reach. But, you know, you guys get the idea now. Get those mounts, get all of the wounds open before you finish the mount, and then after that, finish the mount, and then go back into the monster and pop all of those wounds for decent, chunky bonus damage. But anyways, that's going to be it for this video. If you guys enjoyed it, if it helped you out in any way, do let me know in the comment section down below, and hit the like button because it really helps me out, and subscribe for more Monster Hunter Wilds content. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one. Stay strong, stay safe, peace out.